Welcome everyone to the very first review show for NASCAR Backmarker battles in 2024. I am your host Colby Evans, aka Starting Park Car on Twitter, and we had one of the most wild, wacky, and you could also say kind of dumbest weekends in Daytona that we have ever seen. Some races were good for the Backmarkers, some races were not so good for the Backmarkers, and we're going to go through all of that today. We're also going to preview this weekend's races at Atlanta. We got all three series running again. So 2 straight weekends of plate racing to start the year. Is it overkill? Yes, it is. But is that just the way the schedule is nowadays? Yes, it is. So we'll just get right into it here, guys, on the show. I'm going to go through my little intro. I go through the beginning of every ARCA podcast and NASCAR Backmarker Battle podcast. And we will jump right into the Daytona review. So as of course, like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for all notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when I go live. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday with the ARCA Racing podcast, usually on Tuesday, and NASCAR Backmarker Battles on Thursday. Sometimes we switch it up pending race results and ownership results. So, and of course, super chats are open. If you would like to send a super chat to help support the channel, it would mean a lot to me, and I would thank you very much for that. And check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR meet-related content. And don't forget to go follow me on Twitter at StartinParkCar on Twitter for all NASCAR, ARCA, and dumb usual takes that you guys know I'm used for. So that's why y'all love me so much. But anyway, guys, I was there in Daytona. If for the people who did watch my ARCA podcast, people who did watch the ARCA podcast, I was in Daytona there helping club racing. So I was distracted. I did have to go back and watch the truck race just to see the absolute crap show that it really was. I saw it on Twitter. I saw some replays at the track. I really didn't get a chance to see any of the race because we had to still work on our ARCA car. We had some steering issues. Went back and watched it, and yeah, wow. That was not good. That was probably one of the worst Daytona truck races I can honestly remember watching. And that's being honest. My first Daytona truck race was 2008. That was my very first Daytona truck race. And I have not seen one as bad as the one that we saw a couple days ago. Just, I think just a case of too many rookies and a lot of dumb mistakes, man. And, that's kind of one thing that we had predicted going into that race. We had a lot of, and we also had a kind of a smaller entry list than usual. We had 40 trucks for the race. Obviously 36 would go home. Trying to find the entry list here. Bear with me for 1 second. The Fresh from Florida 250. We had 40 trucks. We did have some surprising entrants. We had Ryan Huff. Looks like Ryan Huff Motorsports has expanded from ARCA to the truck series. It actually appears that the truck that Ryan Huff purchased was actually the G2G Racing plate truck from last year that Norm Benning tried to attempt. So it wasn't a bad truck. But it looks like they have purchased a plate truck. Not sure how many races they'll run with that truck, considering that is a plate track specific truck, but I'm sure if they wanted to bring it to other races, they probably could, but I'm not sure how that would really work out for them. So, but yeah, we had 40 drivers on the entry list. Lots of changes this year on the entry list. We'll go through them real quick. We have Mason Massey. He's in the 02 truck. Looks like one full-time truck this year for Young's Motorsports, which I think is highly ideal for that organization. One driver, one full-time truck. With the short fields that are predicted this year, I do expect to see this, the 12 and maybe the 20 come out at some point. But for now, I think having just one truck is so much better for that organization. And Mason Massey is not a bad driver at all. Tony Breidinger returns to the one. Like I said, we had Jennifer Jo Cobb, Corey LaJoy, and another one-off appearance. We had 3 Rayom trucks again, the 22 of Jason White, 27 of Keith McGee, and the 33 of Lawless Allen. Of course, I said Ryan Huff, Mason Maggio, and that Floridian Motorsports team that had help from Carl Long, Raja Caruth, and a 3rd Spire truck. Clay Greenfield was back again, and Cody Robar was also back again in a 2nd entry. So we had quite the range of entries. We also had Johnny Sauter in the 45 since Lawless Allen had moved over to Rayom. The trucks did have The trucks did have the one practice session. Again, I did get to briefly see a little bit of the practice. Johnny Sauter, unshockingly, was fast. He was actually one of a lot of the pre-race favorites for Nice Motorsports, just because of how good of a plate racer he is. 39 of the 40 trucks did take a practice lap. It looks like maybe the only one that did not get out for a lap, looking at the results, was the 36 of Ryan Huff, so that could have potentially impacted their chances of making the race. Jennifer Jo Cobb only did take one lap and was pretty slow. A lot of trucks only took a couple lap runs. Not many trucks took more than 10 lap runs outside of the top organizations. Some of the backmarkers that did fairly well for single car speed or for truck speed. Brian Dauzat up in 10th with the 28 team. FDNY always brings a good piece to this race. You had Cody Robar in the top 20. You had Clay Greenfield in the top 20. You'd have some top guys down below. You had Timmy Hill down in 35th. Tyler Ankrum down in 32nd. Thad Moffitt 30th. And eventual race winner, Nick Sanchez, was only 30th quickest in practice. But that's why it's just practice, I mean, it's just in my opinion, that's why we should have every week. Get the truck set up right, get a feel for it and see what you got for qualifying. That's why, again, I like having practice. But we don't have to go in depth, for plate practice as much as we do with regular series practice because, plate racing practice, I can see why we don't need it. I know teams find it useless, and to that extent, I can understand it. But at the end of the day, I like having practice at the plate tracks because it just makes sure you have the ride heights set correctly, the truck feels good, or the trucking car feels good for the driver. I really just don't like the idea of showing up and going straight to qualifying. You got to have that, even if it's just a 30-minute or 10-minute session, just to warm everything up, make sure everything's running right, make sure you didn't forget anything at the shop. I really do think those kinds of sessions going forward should be, I want to say, mandatory. You don't even have to participate in it. I mean, that's what I mean, the same thing. For the teams that would want to participate in that, I think that's what NASCAR should do going forward. Just have a 30-minute practice session. And you don't even have to mandate it. If the teams don't want to go out, they don't have to. But if you have some teams who would want to go out and practice, let them do it. I mean, there's teams on some sides of the garage that don't want to practice, and there's teams on some sides of the garage that do want to practice. Why not just have a 50-minute practice session? And for the teams who don't want to practice, well, they don't want to practice. But for some teams who do want to practice, let them go out. I mean, it's that simple. I don't know why we can't just do that on a weekly basis. But we get to qualifying results. And again, I did go out to pit road. I was able to watch a little bit of qualifying. Say hi to Timmy Hill's guys. Always great seeing them. Wished I was working with them again this year, but unfortunately, wasn't really planning on going in down in general. Like I said, just Alex Club happened to invite me. Qualifying results, pretty explanatory. Ryan Huff, I think, qualifying was the first laps for that truck, and yeah, boy, they were not very quick. With no owner points to back up either, it was pretty easy DNQ for him. Same thing with Jennifer Jo Cobb. Clay Greenfield, despite showing great speed in practice, the truck can clearly draft. It's just the problem is your single truck speed, and that's the problem for a lot of these trucks, is that despite them going just fine in the draft, like they can keep up perfectly and draft perfect, it's all a matter of how that truck is going to keep up by itself. And yeah, Keith McGee, unsurprisingly, the Rayom trucks among the slowest. Rayom was 36th, 38th, and 39th on the speed charts. But of course, they have owner points, so they're locked into the race. Jennifer, she tried, but she missed it. Clay Greenfield missed it. And the final truck to miss it was the 21 of Mason Maggio. They actually just barely missed the field. The 21 missed the show by just under 8 100ths. And when you think of that at a plate track, that's close, man. That's really, really close. So that's a tough break for Mason Maggio. I believe had Mason Maggio made the race, I think the truck to go home would have been the 27 of Keith McGee. I think he would have been the truck to go home. So very lucky for Rayom's sake, at least, but tough break for the 21 team as That was their very first attempt, and they were very close, very, very close. Very, very close to making the show. But it does appear that they will be back at Atlanta, the 21 team. And ironically enough, it looks like it'll be a Rayom truck. I think it'll be a Rayom entry with Mason Maggio driving, and it'll be under the Floridian Motorsports organization. But yeah, the official DNQs, like I said, were Clay Greenfield, Ryan Huff. I'm not even sure if we did DNQ predictions. I honestly don't remember. It's been so long since that podcast, guys. I don't know if any of you guys remember off the top of your heads. But Mason Maggio, Clay Greenfield, Jennifer Jo Cobb, and Ryan Huff. I'm sure we'll see all of them back at Talladega. I'm sure we'll see Jennifer Jo Cobb probably quite a bit this season due to the potential short fields. We might even see Ryan Huff more often too. And I could see the 95 team. I'm sure all of these guys will be around more than a few times this year. Nevertheless, some of the lower guys that did fairly well for single truck qualifying, Cody Robar was up in 14th, which was really great to see him make the field. Brian Dauzat, he barely made the show. He was 29th, I should say, but still made the show on time. And those were kind of the only two real kind of backmarker organizations that did fairly decent for their qualifying runs. And what can you say about the race? There's really not much to say. And I'm trying to be nice here. I don't want to just flat out bury the event, but really not much to say. We went 6 laps before we had a backstretch melee. And then the Rayom trucks crashed each other in turn 2 with Lawless Allen getting some front end damage. And then Keith McGee crashed hard. I mean, really, really hard crash off of turn 4. Rayom, I think Josh Rayom, I think he got interviewed and said that the total cost of the damage was like $100,000 plus dollars. That's wow. And when you think about it, he's probably only bringing in $30,000 or $40,000 in purse money, if that. So, wow. And I didn't realize it looking back, but yeah, the 22 truck looked like it was pretty clean, but the 33 truck had a lot of damage, and that 27 was destroyed on the front end. So yeah, definitely a tough race for Rayom. We did have an early crash. So much for the new Faction 46 team. They really didn't get a chance to show what they had. Thad Moffitt was caught up in the first crash. Ty Dillon didn't know how to hold the brake pedal. I don't know why he didn't just hold the brakes while he was going all over the place and hit the 46 and hit the 71. Ty Dillon's debut for Rackley War also goes horrible. Like I said, lasting 5 laps. Same with Jake Garcia and his debut for Thor Sport didn't last long, and same thing for Lane Riggs. When you had a lot of full-time title contenders right there, Lane Riggs, Jake Garcia, Ty Dillon, and Thad Moffitt, knocked out very early. Didn't really get a chance to show what they had in their new rides. Just like I said, lots of unnecessary crashes and cautions. Johnny Sauter was arguably the class of the field in kind of an unsponsored truck, which was kind of funny. But we kind of figured that was going to happen with how good of a drafter he is. Ben Rhodes kind of had a tough race. This former champion, he hit Tyler Ankrum. They kind of ran into each other, and then he caused a crash when he blew a tire. Matt Mills, his truck just sounded horrible. I remember seeing Matt Mills' truck on track. It sounded horrible, like they were almost down a cylinder or something. Tony was involved in a couple accidents. Mason Massey, I believe he was involved in maybe an accident. Then you had the big last lap melee, which took out like 18 people. I mean, it was a mess. There's really no good way for me to describe this race. It's like we would go 4 or 5 laps, and then something would happen. We would go 4 or 5 laps, and then something would happen. Believe it or not, we actually somehow got a 12-lap green flag run, but the fact that that's the longest green flag run we did, I will say is kind of embarrassing. I don't think stage racing helped either. In this instance, having these stages did not help. I still don't know why the Truck Series has stages in their races or stage cautions. Races are too short for stage cautions. But needless to say, and I'll say this regarding the last lap, I am kind of happy. That Bubba, and a real shout out to Bubba Wallace for this, watching that last lap crash. I have no idea what Raja Karuth was doing there after turn 2. And I like Raja. We talked before the truck race. I love Raja. Everyone loves him. But, man, that really was a bonehead move, man, that he made coming off a turn 2. He just flat out turned. I believe it was the 91. Just turns him right in front of the field and causes an unbelievable pile up on the last lap. Really unnecessary right there. Nick Sanchez goes on to win. I like Nick Sanchez. I really do think he could be a big future in the sport and a future Chevrolet prospect. So he wins. He was actually involved in a crash. His truck was half damaged, but he still won. So good for Nick Sanchez. Raja Karuth, even despite causing that last lap crash, still finishes second. Some trucks made it through, believe it or not. Corey Heim was third. Brett Holmes, he had a great run. Despite skipping some of the last couple of races, they came back with a vengeance, and Brett Holmes led 13 laps and finished fourth. Spencer Boyd, with his new 76 team, finishes fifth. Stephon Parsons and the Charlie Henderson 75 truck, sixth. Timmy Hill, our man, Timmy Hill, despite being involved in a crash, he only got some damage to the splitter, thank God. He got eighth. Brian Dauzat, yes, for FDNY Racing, got a top 10 finish, and they ran the whole race on one set of tires, which was pretty impressive. Jason White for Rayom got 12th, and I think that's kind of it for the Backmarker good runs. Everyone else was either involved in that last lap crash or had crashed earlier. So we're able to snag a couple of good underdog runs, really, for guys like Dauzat, Hill, and Boyd. That's good for those organizations. Especially Dauzat, because with them, they only really plan on running. This race, Pocono, because that's where the home base is, and then also Talladega. Right, Talladega. So they only plan on running 3 races this year for that 28 team. So to see them even get a top 10 finish to start the season, you gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. I love that team. Love Jim. 80, how old is Jim now? 84 years old, and he's still kicking. So got to love Jim Rosenblum. But yeah, overall, the race was a mess. It's a clear sign to NASCAR that these guys need more practice. The simulator is just not cutting it. I don't want to hear that excuse. And I don't care. And, cost cutting this, cost cutting that. I mean, you can use that excuse all day, but these guys need practice. They need that practice. That was terrible. That cannot happen at Talladega later this year. I'm telling you, if we have anything similar to a race like that at Talladega, you might as well just never bring the truck series back to a plate track. And I'm being honest with that. And if people have a problem with that opinion, I don't know what to tell them, because something's got to change. Obviously the Backmarker runs help. The Backmarker finishes make this a positive, but even the Backmarker finishes, man, cannot take away from what was a really, really bad race. Overall, we'll get into more of the owner points situation regarding that when we get to our Atlanta preview. But for the Daytona truck race, I give it a really, really disappointing 3 out of 10. The only reason why I give it a 3 out of 10 is because we had the FDNY fire truck and Timmy Hill in the top 10. That's why. That's why we get a 3 out of 10. Even though this is kind of out of order, considering it happened after the Daytona 500, we will move on to the Xfinity race. The Xfinity race, it's no longer called the Beef It's What's for Dinner 300, which is such a shame, man. What a weird, stupid, cool name that was. It was the United Rentals 300 at Daytona. We had 44 cars for 38 spots, and let me tell you guys, this was arguably one of the most anticipated qualifying sessions of the year. Almost everyone in the field getting leased motors. It was going to be interesting to see who missed the race. Some cars didn't, and some cars did, and it was very noticeable. In terms of the entry list, we did have a couple changes from the previous season that I went over on last week, but I'll briefly touch on here. We had Jesse Love from the ARCA Series taking over Sheldon Creed's ride in the 2. Dawson Cram running full-time for Johnny Davis. Anthony Alfredo going back to Our Motorsports in a renumbered 5 car. Garrett Smithley returns for a part-time schedule in the 6 for Johnny Davis. Patrick Emmerling and Joey Gase have split. Patrick Emmerling has joined Bobby Dodder's team and will run a part-time schedule in the 07. Sammy Smith has moved from Joe Gibbs to Junior Motorsports to drive the 8. Josh Williams will drive the 11 full-time for Kite Racing, who will primarily field the 14 this season. Haley Deegan joins AM Racing in the 15. Sheldon Creed joins the 18 car full-time for Gibbs. Ryan Truex and John Hunter Nemechek will return for part-time schedules. Kyle Sieg will run full-time in the 28. Blaine Perkins will run full-time in the 29 for RSS Racing. Jordan Anderson is back for a couple of races in the 32, part-time entry for his own organization. Frankie Muniz will run the 35 for Joey Gase in this race and potentially become a part owner in his team as well, as that has been heavily featured on Twitter in the last couple days. Leland Honeyman Jr. with Randy Young's team that has moved up to the Xfinity Series will run full-time in the 42. Brennan Poole run full-time in the 44. Alpha Prime Racing scaling back to 2 full-time cars, which I definitely think is the better option for that series, that organization. Let's see here. We have Stanton Barrett in the 74. BJ McLeod will return to the Xfinity Series, more of a bassist in his Cup team. Chandler Smith is in the 81. Josh Blick in the 92. And Shane Van Gisbergen in the 97. So, 44 cars for 38 spots, guys. It was so hard to pick DNQs for this one. It gets harder and harder every year to pick DNQs. It really does. Practice, I didn't get to see any of this practice session again, unfortunately, due to, again, issues with the ARCA car. I heard them go around the track, but I didn't, unfortunately, get to see them. There was the threat of rain, that the rain was going to cancel out qualifying. Somehow we were able to get it in. Jeb Burton, unshockingly, the Chevrolets showing the fastest speeds in practice. Jeb Burton won practice. All 44 cars were able to get a lap. Stanton Barrett's car, the 74 team, they were having a tough time. They did get through tech, which thankfully they did. They didn't get through qualifying tech last year. The car ran a measable lap of 134, so it's clear that car just was not really, just well. I don't know what was wrong with it. You could kind of tell by the practice speeds that the 29, the 43, and the 44 maybe did not have leased motors. Now, some people said that they did have leased motors. Maybe it was just my observation was wrong, but I think the 44 did have a leased motor, but I think the 43 did not. I don't know. Someone at Alpha Prime had said that they were running a full season ECR motor program, but I'm not for sure which car. I'm not sure if that was for the 43 or for the 44 or both. I don't know off the top of my head. We had guys and gals like Dawson Cram in 39th, Daniel Suarez in 38th, Natalie Decker in the 36th. She was 35th. Again, practice not the best judgment, as obviously they're out there drafting. And then came qualifying. Somehow we were able to fit qualifying in on the brief day of Saturday before everything else just got washed out. And boy, was it something. Originally in the race, we'll talk about the big qualifying storyline to begin with. David Starr in MBM Motorsports, who had originally made the race on speed. They had originally made the race on speed. It was a great thing for MBM. They were actually, after the real struggle that Carl Long went through last year, it would have been great to see them in the show. But unfortunately, it later came out that they had failed post-race tech. Not because they were legitimately cheating. It was an honest mistake. It was an honest mistake from the team. But it sounded as if there was too much split in the track bar in post-race tech. It wasn't allowed to be no more than 3 inches. And I guess it was more than 3 inches. So unfortunately, the 66's time was disallowed. And with virtually no owner points to fall back on from last year, unfortunately, David Starr was missing the race. And unfortunately, MBM would later put out a post saying that they would be back for a part-time schedule this year. So unfortunately for the Carl Long fans, such as myself, MBM will not be running a full season schedule and will instead be running a part-time schedule, which sucks. But, honestly, after what I saw last year, I'm not shocked. And, obviously Carl and the team have to do what's right for that organization, which sucks because, like I said, they were going to be in the show, but unfortunately that got changed. And another team, I'm not sure who would have missed the race had the 66 made it in. Maybe the 53. I'm not sure who would have made the race had the 66 made it in. I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, the RSS cars were arguably the most surprising part of qualifying. Seeing McLaughlin and Kyle Sieg both that slow was quite shocking. It made me wonder, I guess they didn't have, I don't know if you would classify as a lease motor or not, but Yeah, Kyle Sieg was only, I think he was only, 41st quickest? Only like 41st quickest. Looked like the 78 of BJ McLeod didn't have a least motor, but he had his owner points from last year, so he knew he was fine. Same thing with the 35. They bought points from last year, so they didn't need a least motor for Frankie Muniz. It didn't look like the 43 had one either, as Ellis had a pretty slow lap. But yeah, the 28 and the 38, very, very slow laps by the RSS gang. And Blaine Perkins was only a little bit faster than them. So, and Ryan Sieg, it kind of felt like Ryan Sieg was even sandbagging his qualifying lap a little bit. So the RSS cars definitely did not show much speed. Definitely did not show much speed in qualifying, which was very shocking. That shocked a lot of people in my Discord. That shocked a lot of people on Twitter. It was just like, wow, we're used to seeing these guys qualify, not up front at least, but like mid-pack. We're used to seeing the RSS cars qualify mid-pack. Some of the cars that were slow that were expected, the 74, I'll give them credit. The 74 went a lot better than I thought they would go. 51, 53 for Mike Harmon entries. It's actually pretty good. I'll give them that. That's actually pretty good. And it makes you wonder, man, if that 74 had a least motor and at least Chevrolet B motor in it, they probably would have had a shot at making the field. So it just kind of shows you, man, it really all is about the motor under the hood. It's not about the car. So, it was Cram, right. Yeah, Dawson Cram originally would have missed the race. He was the car that got bumped in with the 66 bumping out. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. But yeah, and that was a lucky for Dawson Cram. Somehow Garrett Smithley, it looks like Garrett Smithley, I guess, had the least motor and the 4 car did not. I don't think anybody expected the 6 car to make the race on time. I didn't. So that was a pleasant shocker to see the 6 car qualify all the way up in 23rd place. But it shows you the difference between having a leased motor versus having an in-house motor, and over almost like half a second difference and a 2-mile-per-hour speed difference. Natalie Decker, she made the field on time. It was all or nothing for her too. The cars, though, the official DNQs were the 53 of Joey Gase, the 45 of Cesar Beccarella, the 38 of CJ McLaughlin, and the 28 of Kyle Sieg. So yeah, not only were they slow, they missed the field too, which I said that was pretty, I'm not going to lie, that's pretty embarrassing for RSS Racing to have 2 of their cars miss the race. The 74 of Stanton Barrett and the 66 of David Starr. So, yeah, definitely. Like I said, guys, we could not have predicted those cars missing the race. I would not have predicted seeing 2 RSS cars go home. Maybe CJ McLaughlin at a normal race, I could see him going home, but you would not have thought that RSS would have blown it like that, like they did at Daytona. I'm curious to know if they just maybe didn't expect the cars to go that slow, if something went wrong. But yeah, the race itself was run after the Daytona 500. It was so cool to see Andy Petrie back on commentary. It was, despite him only leading 9 laps of the race, it felt like the Austin Hill show, and it really was the RCR show. Jesse Love and Austin Hill were on pole. Shocker. RCR pretty much rules this race. Austin Hill was going for 3 in a row, and they pretty much dominated the race, whether it was Austin Hill out front or Jesse Love. Now, Jesse Love was involved in a crash mid-race, which pretty much did hinder his chances. Fox missed so many crashes, and it was just kind of embarrassing how many they missed. They literally missed a 4 to 5 car pileup on lap 22 that we had to watch in a damn replay, which took out the 1 in a horrible hit for Sam Mayer, Daniel Suarez, Haley Deegan, and Kyle Weatherman. So much for Daniel Suarez. He crashed out in both races. Haley Deegan's new Xfinity team lasted all of 22 laps. And Kyle Weatherman, unfortunately for him, his race lasted only 22 laps as well. Excuse me. We had another crash on lap 38, which really was the big one. It's actually involved Austin Hill. That took out Josh Williams. That took out Frankie Muniz, unfortunately. Poor Frankie Muniz. He really didn't even get a chance out of the box. He lost the draft early. It was a real probably struggle for Frankie Muniz, to be honest with you. Thought he would do a little bit better, but he just kind of struggled. Josh Bilicki and Dawson Cram, not really sure what happened there. They were avoiding a spinning car, and it looks like the Ford just shunted the 92 right into the grass. So I'm not really sure what happened there. I think that was when John Hunter Nemechek blew a tire through the infield. It was just a lot of weird cautions. Like I said, this was a weird weekend for cautions, man. I don't know what was happening out there, but it's almost like this weekend was cursed. The amount of weird wrecks and the weird cautions we saw, I just don't remember seeing stuff like that, And then we came to one of my favorite moments of the race, the run between lap 67 and lap 97. You had some cars that had stayed out and some cars that had pitted. Well, the main cars in the field had pitted. However, some people towards the back of the field, Natalie Decker, Ryan Ellis, and Garrett Smithley had already pitted. So this was arguably, for me, the most fun part of the race, and I really mean this. You had Natalie Decker leading the race at Daytona. For all the crap that we give Natalie Decker, I'll give her props. She stayed out of trouble, and she actually led the race. It was her, Anthony Alfredo, who was laps down from a crash, Ryan Ellis, Garrett Smithley, and then Patrick Emmerling. They were in a 5-pack, and when you're in a 5-pack of cars, you're actually going to hold your own on speed. So it's not like they just got ran down by the leaders. They were running pretty much consistent lap times. Like, they were not really losing any ground to the leaders. And that was pretty cool. And I'm glad Fox didn't just ignore them, just ignore them, just focus on the leaders. Like, no, they actually went and showed Natalie Decker. They talked about her, and they actually showed Ryan Ellis. Eventually, Ryan Ellis took the lead. But yeah, how about that? Ryan Ellis and Natalie Decker both led laps in the Daytona Xfinity race. And I don't care if it was by, pit strategy. That's just cool for them. To say that you not only competed in a race, but led a lap at Daytona, man, that's got to be a pretty cool accomplishment. I believe that's what Natalie Decker becomes the second or third woman to ever lead a lap around Daytona. And that's pretty cool in itself, man. That's a big accomplishment for her. But yeah, it was just kind of cool seeing them get on TV. And who would have thought that Natalie Decker would have actually been the best DGM car? I'll give her that too. The poor 92 car just kept getting crashed. It felt like wasn't even Josh's fault. And the 91 didn't even get out of the box because he was involved in a crash early. Natalie Decker ended up being the best. Natalie Decker ended up being the best DGM car. I'm not sure many people would have predicted that. And I wouldn't have predicted that either. So I'll give her, for all the crap we give her sometimes, I'll give Natalie Decker her props. She did a great job. And leading laps at Daytona, good for her. For all the crap we give her, she did a great job. I'll give her that. You can't deny it. She did a great job. But we ended up getting that caution that they desperately needed before they had to pit. So it was actually kind of funny. They led the field down to green. Then the melee ensued again. Poor Garrett Smithley, despite riding around the entire race, still got involved in a crash. Luckily, just spun. SVG, he got involved in I swear, Shane Van Gisbergen was involved 10 crashes over the course of the Xfinity and ARCA races. So he probably cannot wait to get away from Daytona for a while. Then, of course, we had another crash in the second to last lap. The 44 nearly went over. Thank God that car wasn't hurt too bad. And then the last lap crash, which thankfully didn't throw the yellow. However, it really didn't create that much of a finish. The 21 of Austin Hill, somehow, man, despite the damage, Austin Hill got back to the front, and you kind of just knew it, man. Once he got back to the front, that was it. And, they had that last lap crash. The 39 of Ryan Sieg got turned, and it looked like, maybe something was going to happen. And the amount of distance that the 21 was able to put on the 18 by single car speed, man, it really shows you. It really, really shows you just how much faster those RCR cars really were. And poor Sheldon Creed, what was this? His eighth bridesmaid finish. Poor Sheldon, man. He's got to win. He'll win at some point. I believe Sheldon will win at some point, but it had to irk him inside to finish second to Austin Hill, of all people. But Austin Hill, nonetheless, he wins his third straight race at Daytona, kind of shades of Martin Truex Jr. at Talladega in the mid-2000s. It's been done before, 3 in a row at a plate track. But, wow, very impressive, man. Even with damage, you cannot stop Austin Hill. With the last lap crash, it gave us some great and well-deserved underdog finishes. Now, some people were pointing out, saying, well, why don't you include Jordan Anderson in fourth? Well, for me, yeah, Jordan Anderson's an underdog driver, but Jordan Anderson Racing is not an underdog organization. They're a multi-million-dollar organization. They run RCR. They run leased RCR motors every single week. They're a top 15 caliber team every single week. I wouldn't classify them as an underdog team, so that's why I didn't put them. The first one I put was Ryan Ellis in 11th. Great for them. You had Blaine Perkins. I guess you could say Blaine Perkins in the 2019. I don't know. You know, RSS has a good budget, but how much are they really putting for that 29 car? So I'll include him. BJ McLeod, 15th. Good run for him. Garrett Smithley, 16th. Patrick Emmerling, 17th. Natalie Decker gets a top 20 and 18th. And Brennan Poole, despite the damage, still recovers to 19th. So some good underdog runs in there, but again, a little bit not as messy, of course, as the truck race, but still a lot of a mess. Again, I blame it on the rookie drivers. You know, we just got to be more calm, man. There's really no reason why we should be wrecking on lap 20. We should be riding around, man. There's no reason why we should be wrecking this early. And that's, I think, the one thing we got to teach, man. It's lap 20. It's not lap 120. We should just be riding around, logging laps, see what the car's got, planning ahead. So, I don't know, man. The Xfinity race, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It was actually still pretty good, even despite the craziness. But congratulations to Austin Hill. And like I said, we'll talk more about the underpoint situation in the Atlanta preview portion. Now comes the big kahuna, the 2024 Daytona 500. Only 42 cars entered, and it looked like it was only going to be 41 for a while. The 44 car went through quite the struggle. Greg Biffle was the original driver for the 44. The open entries this year, I should say beforehand, other than the 36 chartered entries, the open cars were the 62 of Anthony Alfredo, the 84 of Jimmy Johnson, the 36 of Kaz Gralla, the 60 of David Reagan, the 44 of J.J. Yaley, and the 78 of B.J. McLeod. J.J. Yaley was not supposed to be the original driver of the 44. It was supposed to be Greg Biffle, as his name and likeness was on the 44 hauler. However, Greg Biffle would post a statement saying that due to not being paid from 2 years ago, might I add you, he would not be running the car. J.J. Yaley would get the call on the Monday before the Daytona 500 to drive. An ironic, funny twist, J.J. Yaley was actually wearing Greg Biffle's fire suit. So that was kind of funny. B.J. McLeod would show up, obviously, despite selling the charter. They're still going to be running. I believe it Live Fast is all B.J. now. I don't believe Matt Tifft is involved with Live Fast anymore. If he is, I don't think he is. I think Matt Tifft is on his own now. I think Live Fast is pretty much B.J. all by himself. Obviously, you had Jimmy Johnson in the 84 for Legacy, Anthony Alfredo in the 62 for Beard. Kind of surprised not to see Austin Hill in that entry. Kaz Gralla in a random Bob Jenkins entry. And, of course, Stage 60, the new open team for RFK Racing. Qualifying started off pretty much how you'd expect it with the teams, the four teams who are going to try to make it on speed. The 44 showed absolutely no pace whatsoever in qualifying, but I think, again, you know, not having any practice before qualifying is stupid. I think that would be really stupid going forward. We need a practice session. Again, there's no – I don't understand this either. I'm trying to explain this properly. It's like, for the teams who don't want a practice session before qualifying and don't mind it, is an easy answer. Don't participate in it. You know? Like, I don't understand. It's like, oh, we don't want a practice session. Like, okay, we can have the practice session. You just don't have to participate in it. I don't understand that argument. We can have the practice. If you don't want to participate in it, don't participate. I don't understand that. But then they'll get mad, you know, and then complain like, you know, most of the people in the NASCAR sport do, like myself. But yeah, the 44 showed absolutely no speed in practice. So it's kind of shocking to see how much speed they actually showed in the duels. BJ was pretty slow, which was kind of expected. The Spire entries were actually pretty slow. All of them outside the top 30. That was shocking. Christopher Bell and last year's Daytona 500 winner Ricky Stenhouse Jr. also outside the top 30. Denny Hamlin only 34th. Jimmy Johnson only 35th. He actually did not make it on time. Excuse me. Legacy Motor Club cars were pretty slow. Toyota in general, not very fast in the duels. Not very fast in single car speed, might I add. The highest Toyota overall was Eric Jones. I believe it was Eric Jones in 20 seconds. So definitely Toyota is not focusing on the qualifying speed, clearly. It was the Fords and the Chevrolets. The two cars that were advancing in on time were the 60 car, which we kind of had predicted. And I would say kind of a surprising one, the 62. I don't think anyone had predicted that car to make the show on time, but it did have a Chevrolet motor, so kind of could have called that one. But Anthony Alfredo and David Reichen will be the two cars racing in on speed, guaranteed in. So that meant that Jimmy Johnson, BJ McLeod, JJ Aley, and Kaz Gralla, who had shifter issues, would be the four cars to race in. And shout out to Michael McDowell, by the way. Man, it would have been cool to see Michael McDowell sit on the pole. Well, Michael McDowell and the 34 Loves team got second. So great publicity for them. Great publicity for Loves. You got to love it, man. Seeing the growth of Front Row Motorsports ever since that Daytona 500 win has been such a blessing. Absolutely been a blessing to see that 34 team improve so much. Almost feels bad when you see them, complain about the 38 sometimes. Like, you have some people say, well, the 38's not the same. Obviously, the 38's probably not getting the same amount, but Todd Gilliland should get more respect, man. He really is doing the best he can with that 38 car. And I think he's overlooked because of the 34 car. I think Todd Gilliland should get more credit for what he does in that car, for sure. So the first duel pinned JJ Aley up against Jimmy Johnson. Anthony Alfredo pretty much, he knew he was locked in, so he just lost the draft on purpose and rode around. There was really no sense in trying for them. They knew they were locked in. So it was JJ versus JJ, I guess you could say. And surprise to everyone, the 44 not only showed speed, like the 44 showed that it could actually go. Like, man, that car could go in the draft. I mean, and, like I said, Yaley's an exceptional plate racer. Yeah, he's missed races, but that's more due to his team and not himself. But JJ's a pretty solid plate racer, man. So, to everyone who just said, this is going to be an easy one for Johnson, I didn't count him out. I didn't count him out one bit. Our day was over for the ARCA race, so I actually went and stood by the number 44 pit box for the entire dual one. I wanted to just stand by them just to see how they did. It's kind of cool. They were using a Joey Gase pit box, was the 44 team. But no, I'm telling you, the 44 hang up right there with the 84 the whole race. The only time they really got separated was during the green flag pit stops when we had a minor accident. They only took fuel only, but Yaley didn't get a good exit off of pit road. He lost the draft, and I thought that was pretty much it. But then we got that late race caution that Jimmy Johnson was actually involved in. Jimmy Johnson was involved in a late race caution. And I'm telling you, man, the celebration of the 44 pit was big. But when we saw the 84 pull away, the guys were like, okay, let's calm down now. Let's calm down now. Let's get back to business. And I'm telling you, it looked like that JJ was going to get it. When they came to the white flag and Jimmy was actually behind him, I didn't think there was any way for JJ to lose that. Then they came into turn 3 and 4. Something happened at the front of the field, and Ross Chastain checked up. And what was Yaley going to do? Run into the back of him and cause a crash? The instinctive thing was to go to the outside groove. However, the car behind him was Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson was not going to go to the outside groove. And with these cars, we know that when you pull out of line, you're going to go back. You're going to go back fast. And unfortunately for JJ Aley, that's all that had happened. And I'm telling you guys, it hurt. It hurt seeing JJ lose the 500 race like that. And with how the race really went for Jimmy Johnson, it was kind of a waste of a spot anyway. Jimmy Johnson got wrecked on lap 20 and ran 2 laps down the entire race. So, man, that one hurt. And I stood right there. I watched as, Jimmy came out, gave JJ a handshake. But, man, that would have been cool to see the 44 team. You talk about how cool that would have been to see the 44 team knock out the juggernaut of the 84. Now, that would have been a really, really big story in NASCAR, seeing JJ Aley knock out the 44. But Wasn't meant to be. You know, it was kind of the same thing in duel too. BJ McLeod ran a great duel, and I mean a great duel. You know, he ran as high as third. BJ McLeod ran as high as third in a duel. And he showed he could go. And I'm telling you guys, that was the BJ McLeod you would see for real. If BJ McLeod had the money to spend on a weekly basis, that's the BJ McLeod you would see racing at a plate track, racing at all tracks. He's really a good racer. Kind of shocked me to finally realize how many people came to think that, oh, wow, BJ McLeod's actually a good race car driver. Yeah, no shit. But BJ kind of got suckered out. He was involved in the caution. There was actually a caution in the second duel. Car wasn't damaged too bad, but when I realized that the 60 car was in that duel, I forgot, oh, wait, he's got to beat him. So there was just going to be no beating the 60 and the 36. I mean, it was pretty obvious that they were working together. I mean, the 36 is a technical alliance with the RFK team. So it's not shocking to see that when the 36 team, people were trying to tell me that the 36 and the 60 were not working together. Yeah, they were. It was pretty obvious. Well, either way, I mean, oh, no, now they're with Penske. I thought there was an RFK alliance with the 36. Or was that last year? I don't know. Either way, guys, Fords are going to help Fords. All right. That was last year. All right. Well, I guess that was last year. Still, Fords are going to help Fords. BJ was not going to beat that. And he tried. He did. He tried his best. BJ tried his best. I'll give him that. And it was a last lap run, man, where I thought he had it. He just had nowhere to go. But BJ fought until that very last second, man. Unfortunately, came up short. But you're not telling me for 1 second that the 36 and the 60 car were not working together. That was pretty obvious. But kind of sucked, man. The two biggest underdog stories in the 500 missed the race, in my opinion. And yeah, you had Rick Ware Racing. And at the end of the day, though, I'll be honest with you, Rick Ware Racing doesn't necessarily feel like a low. I mean, it's hard to describe. I want you guys to just make sense. Rick Ware Racing now has Justin Haley. They have an RFK partnership. Justin Haley will likely be Brad Keselowski's replacement. That's my guess. You know, the 15 car is kind of the more of the Rick Ware car, and the 51 car is more of the RFK Rick Ware car. But can we really classify Rick Ware as an underdog team anymore? I mean, come on. Even in the Cup Series nowadays, you have to spend boatloads of millions of dollars to be competitive. And sure, Rick Ware Racing has spent that money to be more competitive. And it kind of just made me realize, man, when I looked at the field of the Daytona 500, really was no big underdog stories this year. It didn't really feel like there was any big underdog stories in the Daytona 500 because the Rick Ware cars themselves were fine. I mean, you had Riley Herbst, who was basically driving an SHR affiliate car in the 15, and we knew Justin Haley's car was probably right up the floor from RFK, or even if it wasn't, it still had a lot of RFK input in it from Rick Ware. Like I'm sorry, but it didn't really feel like we had any underdog storylines to sink our nails into this year. Does that make sense? Am I the only one feeling that? Anyone in the chat, pipe in. Did it just not feel like we had any real underdog storylines to really pull for this year? I mean, yeah, we were pulling for Rick Ware Racing, but at the same time, this is not the Rick Ware Racing that we saw just 3 years ago. This is a Rick Ware Racing juggernaut now, where they're actually great money, competitive. I think Rick Ware Racing will be a solid top 25 team the entire year. I wouldn't even put them in a low budget category anymore. So, yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how that comes off to you guys, but to me, it was hard for me to sink my teeth into the underdogs this year because it didn't feel like we really had any in the field. And, you know, so much for some of the open cars. I mean, you know, Kaz Gralla and Jimmy Johnson crashed in 5 laps. Jimmy Johnson got damaged in the first 5 laps, and his race was pretty much screwed for the rest of it. And Kaz Gralla, his race was ruined in 5 laps. So it's like, what was the point? All that effort for nothing. Race itself was very good. I'll say this. That was probably, and I put a tweet out that said, that was probably the best Daytona 500 in the Gen 7 era. I can confidently say that. That was great. It was an overall fantastic 500. Great racing all around. It sucked that big crash took out Brad Keselowski. Again, that's my guy. And then we had that crap of a finish, man. That finish sucked. That finish sucked. Seeing the Daytona 500 once again end under yellow, God, it just takes all the wind out of your sails. And William Byron, man, the guy who has one of the biggest rides in NASCAR, has got no fan base. I mean, it's just kind of funny. Poor William Byron, he gets out of the car, just no crowd reaction. The guy just won the Daytona 500. He's driving Jeff Gordon's car, Jeff Gordon's famous car. He gets out of the car, and there's just nothing from the crowd. Like, poor guy. He's driving the top ride, one of the top rides in NASCAR. He's got no fan base. It's quite funny, in my opinion. He's literally got no fan base, and he's driving one of the top cars in the sport. And I've said that all this time. It's kind of funny at this point. But yeah, no real great underdog stories. I mean, they really, like I said, they all crashed out. Justin Haley, he was running top 5 at one point, but they had fuel pump issues. Riley Herbst, he kind of gotten involved in a crash too. The highest open car was the 60 of David Reagan, who ran as high as, first. He actually led a couple laps. We had Corey LaJoie finish 4th, but can you really say Spire Motorsports is an underdog team nowadays? Not really either. So yeah, William Byron wins. Alex Bowman was 2nd. And I just think, man, you look at this year, like I said, you look at the Cup lineup this year. Can you really say there's any underdog organizations in the Cup Series anymore? And honestly, if you take out the part-time ones, really don't think there is. You could probably say that 15 car is all, because the 15 car will resemble more of a Rick Ware car than the 51 will, but that's really it. And BJ McLeod's team was really kind of the last true underdog organization we had left in the Cup Series, because now Rick Ware Racing has become a juggernaut, in my opinion, with RFK. And they're going to go big places, that team. And I hope they do. I hope Rick Ware Racing can become a top 20 caliber team. So, I mean, you could say the same thing for the 47 car, but at the end of the day, they've got solid sponsorship. They've got their, affiliates, and they've got plenty of money behind them. They don't have unlimited money, but they got plenty of money. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just kind of made me look at the Cup Series this year and realize, maybe we don't really have any true low budget underdog organizations right now in the Cup Series. And you could really kind of say the true underdogs to pull for on a weekly basis would be, of course, the 51, the 47, but they really don't have an underdog driver. I can't classify them, man. So I would say that really the only true underdog car this year is probably the 15. It is probably just the 15. Oh yeah, trust me, BJ's blue collar. BJ McLeod's blue collar. Yeah. Oh yeah. BJ McLeod's as blue collar as you get as a person. Trust me. But yeah, that was Daytona, man, in a nutshell. It's kind of a mess of a weekend. I'll be honest with you. Even you take out the rain, Daytona was really a mess. And I hope that 2025 will be better. And I hope that the July or the August races will be better too, because I'm telling you, this was not one of the best speed weeks or a speed week. We've seen better. Last year was better. So, all right. Well, that was Daytona. Jesus, we're already 53 minutes in. Well, we're going to speed through Atlanta real quick. Really not much to talk about because there's no practice. We'll just go over the entry lists. All 3 series are at Atlanta. We'll start up with the Truck Series. The 2020-24 FR8 208. Kind of a funny name for a race. I love that. At Atlanta, the truck race at Atlanta, only 33 trucks entered. Kind of surprising, man. And kind of sign of things to come for this season. I do think we will see the Truck Series short fields a lot this year. When I said that Jennifer Jo Cobb might run quite a bit, I could see it, man. I could see Jennifer Jo Cobb run a lot this year because of the short fields. We could see Norm Benning run a lot this year. I'm sure we'll see the GK Racing 95. We'll probably see Ryan Huff. I'm sure we'll see a lot of part-time trucks make up the back part of the field. Probably include Justin Carroll as well. Ray Ohm might run 3 to 4 trucks at some point. So, and I just, man, it's sad to see. I don't think Timmy will run a second truck again. But, yeah, and like I said, we could see the 12 or the 20 Youngs entries. But I think right here is very telling, man. 2 races into the year, and we already have a short field. And keep in mind, we only had 32 on the initial entry list. The 21 was a late additive. But the entry list in general goes like this. We have Colby Howard. Yes, Colby Howard will drive the number 1 truck for David Gilliland's team. So that's pretty cool for Tricon. Kyle Busch will be in the number 7, of course, for his 5 races in the now Spire Motorsports. That's going to take some getting used to. Kyle Busch in the 7. Just doesn't feel right. We have Keith McGee in the 22 for Rayom. Caden Honeycutt in the 45 for Al Neese. Connor Jones in the 66. And that's really it. Other than that, it's kind of the same entry list from Daytona in terms of drivers. But yeah, only 33 trucks. Oh yeah, don't forget Mason Maggio in the 21. And that truck will be helped out by Carl Long and Josh Rayom's team. So, yeah, but that's kind of it, man. Hard to believe, but at the same time, I think it'll be a good race. The truck races at Atlanta are pretty good. I like Atlanta wearing out now that Atlanta's had a chance to really wear out. I think as the years go by, the Atlanta track will be even better over the years. I think we'll see Atlanta continue to get better and better. If I had to pick a winner, obviously no DNQ picks, but if I had to pick a winner, I'll go with, let's see here, a simple winner for this one. Tell you what, I'll pick Kyle Busch. You know, why not? You always pick Kyle Busch for these lower races, so I'll pick Kyle Busch. My underdog pick, I'll go with Grant Enfinger. So we'll go with that. Kyle Busch and Grant Enfinger are my winner and underdog picks for Daytona. Keep in mind, guys, the 2023 owner points are still active for this race and race number 3. Starting at race number 4, we will see the 2024 owner points come into effect because as of now, we're still going by 2023. So that means trucks like the 76 who bought points are safe for now. So just wanted to clarify that. Moving on to the Xfinity race, the Raptor King of Tough 250. Only 38 cars. So everybody's entered it. Again, no DNQs for this race. Pretty much a lot of the standard stuff from Daytona 2. JJ Yaley will drive the 14. Again, will be a Bobby Dotter entry this week. Let's see here. Jeffrey Earnhardt will drive the number 26. Jordan Anderson will continue to drive the 32. However, that'll be a Mike Harmon car this week under Jordan Anderson's team. Joey Gase will move into his 35 car. CJ McLaughlin will be in the 39, and Ryan Sieg will be in the 38. So an interesting switch up there. And that's kind of it. Nick Leitz. Oh yeah, Nick Leitz will be in the 92. So yeah, again, not a lot of changes. It's kind of interesting to see that there's not a lot of changes on the schedule. Looks like, oh yeah, the 53 did withdraw. So we had 39. Not surprised 53 withdrew, but what I'm trying to say is it's just kind of surprising not to see many driver changes this year. But yeah, so no DNQ picks. It's kind of weird, man. It's you. Usually we spend like 5 to 10 minutes talking about DNQ picks. But yet this time we're not talking about them. For race winners pick and underdog picks, I can tell you right now, guys, race winners pick, easy choice, Austin Hill. My underdog pick, let's see, I'll throw one out there. I'll go with Jeffrey Earnhardt. Why not? Get an Earnhardt back in victory lane. So I'll go with Jeffrey Earnhardt as my underdog pick, and we'll go with Austin Hill as my winner's pick. And then we got the big kahuna, the Ambetter Health 400. Glad they kind of shortened this race. It didn't need to be 500 miles. 37 cars. BJ McLeod is running an open car. No sponsorship is listed, but hopefully they get some. Other than that, it's the standard 36 chartered cars. The only real difference is Kaz Gralla is now in the 15 this week with N29 Capital Partners. And Josh Williams will be making his official Cup Series points race debut in the number 16. Other than that, it's your standard field. For this one, I'm going with my man Brad Keselowski to win it. And my underdog pick, I'll go with John Hunter Nemechek. You really can't consider him an underdog, but because it's his return to Cup Series, return to Cup Series, I will put him out. Man, I keep forgetting Josh Williams ran the 78 2 years ago. Why do I keep forgetting that? It was actually his 4th start. So his first points paying start for Call League. How about that? Does that sound better? So, yeah. So, yeah, not a lot to talk about for Atlanta, realistically. And if I can be honest with you guys, I just want to get past Atlanta. I want to get to. I don't hate plate racing. I love it. But, man, having 2 plate races to start the season really is overkill. It really is. So, yeah, if we can just, get to race number 3, I'm not even sure where where's race number 3? I haven't looked at the schedule. I feel bad for not knowing the schedule. I should know this since I'm a NASCAR fan, but I really don't even know where race 3 is. Las Vegas. Yeah, can we just get to Las Vegas already, please? Let's just get to Vegas. The Xfinity race at Las Vegas is gonna rule, but I don't know about the Cup race. But yeah, let's just get to Vegas already. Anyway, guys, that's really all I got for you tonight. We went in over an hour here, so thank you everyone for tuning in, man. I'm not sure how many episodes of Backmarker Battles we're going to be doing this year. I would love to do the show every race, but honestly, with the way it's looking, I'm not sure if we'll be doing Backmarker Battles every week. Just kind of depends on how many good Backmarker runs there really were, and if they're worth talking about. And if that's not the case, then I would say, unfortunately, guys, we're going to skip it because I really don't want to come here and talk about nothing. Like, if there's no Backmarker Battles to talk about, I really don't want to come on here and waste your guys' time. Because it's not fair to you guys. You guys come here to talk about Backmarker stuff and, my stuff with the races. So, yeah. Oh, also say before we go, got a new mascot for him. Meet Bucky the bobblehead. This is I got this at a Bucky's on my way back from Daytona. If you are ever going past a Bucky's, please stop there. It is awesome. And get yourself a Bucky bobblehead. He's the official mascot of the podcast. So, yeah, get yourself a Bucky bobblehead. Oh, boy. Anyway, guys, you guys have a great rest of your Thursday and a great weekend overall. Hope you guys enjoy Atlanta. And, yeah, depending on the results of Atlanta Motor Speedway, we might be here. And if the results of Atlanta don't go well for Backmarkers, we might skip it. So, either way, I'll see you guys next Tuesday or next week at some time for Backmarker Battles, something like that. Or if not, I'll see you guys next time when I see you. Anyway, guys, I've been Colby Evans, starting Park Car. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for notifications. Never miss a podcast when we go live. Follow me on Twitter. You guys know all that good crap. And I'll see you next time. So long, guys. Take care. Goodbye, salute. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.